for me, beekeeping is just part of my serving the world without, any purpose of my own. But I love my family. I love my kids. I love but something where I don't have to do it for my family, right? Or for my practice. Just for me. I love my bees. I love going to watch them. I go to say hello to them at night. And so yeah, it's
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Orthopreneurs Podcast. Today, I am joined by someone who's just like all of you, somebody who's an orthodontist who listens to every episode and just thought it would be fun to be on the podcast, which, by the way, I hope many of you out there would love to be on the podcast because as we were talking about beforehand, it doesn't have to be exciting. It doesn't have to be amazing. You don't have to have gone to the moon and colonized the moon and done ortho up there. Everybody's got a great story. And I always tell people that this is about me just sitting and getting to know somebody over a cup of coffee, basically, and all of you get to listen in. And so today, please put your hands together and welcome Dr. Elena Black. Welcome, Elena.
Thank you, Glenn. Good to be here. And I finished my coffee. It's a little later where I am, so it's my water now.
It's okay. I got my water too. So we're just sitting in a coffee shop, having a good time, getting to know each other. And I tell it to everybody. If someone wants to be on the podcast, the only people I ever say no to are people who are coming on who I don't know, who aren't orthodontists, who are just coming to plug a product. Hey, do you want Dr. Joe Smith on? He's an orthopedic surgeon who came up with a new way to straighten teeth. No, thank you. Not interested. But every orthodontist has a story that we can all relate to. Yours is a little different as we get into it, and we'll dive into some details. But as I start with everybody, Elena, how did you end up where you are? Just give me a rough, give people a rough idea of how did you end up where you are right now?
Well, I think it was just God's, plan. I didn't see it from the beginning, but I grew up in Romania, became a dentist, and came for the PhD here at Boston University, where I also did my residency with Dr. Gianelly, and then I met my husband there, who's from South Carolina, and Virginia was as south as I would go and as north as he would go because my sister's still up north, right? So
Right.
I didn't want to go too far from family. So
Nice.
here I am.
Beautiful. Well, you got to train with Dr. Gianelli,
Yes, that was the
which again,
blessing.
obviously I never had a chance to meet the man, but stories I've heard is that he was just an incredible force in the world of orthodontics, obviously. In a short period of time, tell me a little bit about him. I'd love to learn from somebody who spent real time with him. What was he like?
He was just an incredible human being. He was so humble. On his last birthday, of course, we didn't know at the time it was his last birthday. I went with his book to him and I asked him to sign it for me. And after he did, I was walking away and he said, Elena, thank you for asking. And I was like, I am standing with a giant. I I should thank you.
Right.
He would wash our dishes if we, had a party and we had to run to the patients, like such a servant heart. And the most amazing giant in orthodontist would ask us, how can I do this better? Like we were about to graduate and he asked us, what was the hardest for you guys to learn? How can I make this easier for you?
It's
And
beautiful.
I'm like, he'd been teaching for like 40 something years at the time.
Beautiful.
Um,
What made him like I was speaking to somebody the other day about Dr. Profit, who went through residency with him, and they said that I said, what made him so unusual? What made him so different? Right? Because let's be honest, most orthodontists are pretty smart people. Most orthodontists are pretty good with their hands. Most orthodontists see things pretty well. But there are these people who come through the profession every few years who are just different, right? They see the world differently. Whether you go back to Angle, as far back as you could go, to Profit, to Gianelly. I mean, there's 20 names I could throw in there. Lyle Johnston, right? But my question for you is, when I asked him about Profit, her answer back to me was that he could digest information at a pace that she couldn't believe. She once gave him an 8-page paper and said, "Hey, what do you think about this article?" And in front of her, he said, "Hold on a second." He read the whole thing and started citing the statistics and talking about it at a very deep level, having just literally read it in a minute or two. What do you think made Dr. Gianelli
Dr.
so
Chinelli, if
so
you ask
different?
him a question, right, about orthodontics, he would tell you, um, well, I don't have to tell you the answer, but you can go to this ajodo, this number, this page, and on the third page, on the upper left corner, you're going to have your answer for real, and he was there, right? Like he had a photograph, he knew everything, and he wouldn't tell us the answer. He would say, well, you can go read this here, and you can also go read this here, because, and we did the lit review with him, of course, because, you know, you can, he never, he never took the boards. And you know why he never took the boards? Because he said, because I've read it all, and I can't just limit my thinking just with the papers that the boards agrees with. Because for every paper that says that it's this way, you're going to find one that says that maybe it's not quite this way, right?
Right.
And so he said, so we'd ask him, so what do we do? Well, you're going to have to think for your case and apply. You're going to have to make that decision for the patient in front of you, which one of this evidence applies.
Yeah.
How he basically said none of this is God's law. This is what we have right now. This is the
Yeah.
evidence we have, and that is your job as a doctor, to learn how to read it, critically, um, and to know how to apply it for each patient. Right? It's
Right.
not all or nothing. It's not.
And,
It's
and be
always.
honest, at the end of the day, these are teeth that move really slow. This is not a liver or a lung or a heart or even a knee,
Right.
right? Like we have to work
Or a shoulder.
so
Yeah.
hard to
Yeah.
screw somebody up. We have to work
Yeah.
so hard. And what would fall into the range of normal is so broad that we can get away with almost anything. But I respect the way he viewed everything, the way you describe him. It's just a remarkable human being from everybody I've spoken to. And it's just nice to hear it reconfirmed. And so going back for a second now, so you practice in Virginia. Do you have one practice, one location? Do you have
Oh
multiple
yeah,
locations?
just one small practice. Yes, that I opened from scratch when I moved here. I just waited for my husband to decide where he wants to be physically, so I can open my practice. I wanted to stay up in Boston, and he said, "Why are you fussing? You're happy anywhere. I just wanted to go back closer to
Yeah.
to the south." So.
What were you trying to get your PhD in, by the way?
Well, it's in oral biology, but that just the department is oral biology. At the time in Romania, my doctorate was in perio. I actually worked with Dr. Van Dyke, who is one again. If you talk about perio, Dr. Van Dyke is like Dr. Gianelli for ortho, right? So
Right.
another giant, and like my blessing, and I actually left for Japan first, and so when they gave me the scholarship while I was in Japan, and I said, I'm only leaving my scholarship in Japan if I can train with Dr. Van Dyke. And they promised me that I'll be able to pick, Dr. Van Dyke.
What were you doing in Japan? You say it so casually. I was doing my scholarship in Japan. Like that's not something that comes up in conversation with most people.
So when because Japan, you have to speak Japanese, even if all the literature. And I went there to do my doctorate there first, but it's just the scholarships everywhere else in the world start in the fall, right? When the school starts, but because you have to learn the language, the scholarship in Japan start the beginning of April, and you have 6 months of language, and then you start whatever the language we did with everybody was engineer, dentist, whatever, or kids from everywhere. We're all learning Japanese.
Right.
And then you go to your own university where, you just study whatever you came to do research in. And so, you know, after dental school, I applied, during dental school, I had gone to Turkey to a scholarship, to a summer scholarship, and a professor there had actually done this Mombusho scholarship, her PhD in Japan, again, I was interested in perio. She was a periodontist now in Ankara, Turkey, and she took me to the Japanese embassy in Turkey to show me how to get this scholarship. In her mind, hoping that I would meet Dr. Van Dyke, because that's where she met Dr. Van Dyke,
Oh,
in Japan.
nice.
So, so I had to apply in August for the Japanese scholarship. And I only found out in December. Well, the deadline to apply for the American universities is December 1st. So I had to apply for the American universities. So, but then I got into the Japan. I said, I'm going there. And literally, The weekend I was flying out of Romania, I found out that I got the. So I had applied to 3 universities in the states. One didn't have international programs, but we're talking 100 years ago, right? When I had to wait for half an hour at a university to get to see a black and white screen to access internet and look for universities in America that would take international students. So I
Wow.
applied to a university that didn't take internationals. Then the other one, I think Georgetown, and I only applied there because I had a friend there that had gone there. So I'm not by myself. I got in
You're
January.
dating yourself, by the way. If you said Georgetown Dental School, I think that closed in like 1990, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, no, no, no! It's not the dental school. Okay, so we're talking about just PhD programs.
Got it.
Um, so this was year 2000. Yeah, I'm 50. I turned 50 this year. Uh,
Yes.
so my professor back home told me, just stop applying to everything. You're going to get into everything, and you're going to have a hard time picking. And I said, well, I'm going to Japan unless I get to go work with Dr. Van Dyke. And so I found out, the 2 days before I was flying to Japan, that I had gotten accepted to Boston University, and I turned it down. And I said, well, I'm going to Japan, and I'm going to come after, instead of in Japan, you can do 2 years non-degree or the PhD. So I just said, I'm going to go do the 2 years non-degree, and then I'll come here for the PhD. So,
Do you speak Japanese fluently?
oh, skoshidake, very little. Um,
Okay.
you
But
know,
you're very little, I'm
it's
sure, is
been
pretty good.
20 years.
Yeah.
And
So now you practice in Virginia, one practice. Did you find a challenge practicing in what I would refer to as the South, as somebody who came from Romania? I mean, you have an accent. It's not a big deal to me. But, when I moved to Texas, or Seattle was even worse, believe it or not. You'd never think so. When I moved to Seattle back in 1996, I'd already been a dentist for 4 years. And people would constantly ask me, "Are you from New York? Are you from New York?" Like you couldn't trust somebody from New York. And I flattened at the time. I flattened my accent a ton because of the prejudice I had faced, of all places, Seattle. Now here in Texas, it's not quite as bad. I think people are more used to it these days. But when you opened in the South with a Romanian accent, did it play any role? Do you feel like people judged you because of it?
Yeah, I think this small town in Virginia is still, a lot of, in the dental community, it's a lot of, oh, this is a man's world. This is, yeah, I do think that, even to this day, lots of colleagues that work with my husband, no problem. He's an endodontist. Would never refer to me, but
Really?
my patients refer to me. Oh, absolutely.
But they won't refer to you because of your background or because you're a woman?
Um, I wouldn't know.
Oh, you don't
I
ask.
work with,
You have no
with
idea.
others in town, but I mean, I obviously share patients because
Right.
all of my patients refer me patients and stuff. So
It's all good.
I don't.
Um,
It's all good.
but how do you describe your practice? If I was going to say to you, okay, tell me a little bit about your practice. Is it mostly braces, aligners, adults, kids? What
I
kind of?
think it's half and half of everything. I do both braces and aligners. I brought aligners to Lynchburg. I brought believe it or not, nobody had a Skinner. Nobody. Nobody had a nobody. Very few people were doing Invisalign. Um, so yeah, and again, this was a big no. So they're not sending me patients, but they would call me and say, "Oh, you can't put an ad in the newspaper. You can't put an ad here.
Oh,
You
of
can just
course.
dentists don't do that." I'm like, I'm sorry. I mean, so of course, my ads would be to differentiate my practice. The only practice that has digital scanner. The only place, practice that, so eventually everybody got on board,
Yeah.
so I mean, I
Adults,
guess this
kids, doesn't
practice
make, you'll take anybody who comes to you. You'll do anything. Braces, aligners, kids, adults, it doesn't matter to you.
yes, yes. I have half and half aligners and braces, and half and half adults and kids. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, what I really want to talk to you about, which I'm excited about, is there are two things. Number one, I wanted to get a sense real quickly. What was it like going to dental school in Romania? I was supposed to go to Romania because back in the day when you wanted to do implants, when I was a GP, the only place you could do implants on a patient was outside the United States. You could not, and crystal clear people out there, nobody was going over to go butcher patients. That's not the way it worked. But they found locals in certain European countries where they had arrangements. They could use a hospital or a dental school, go in, they could treat patients,
I
and
was
they treat you like gold. And the patients are so low maintenance. Like they are so thankful. They're so easy to treat. Like the easiest patients you've ever treated in the United States are like the most difficult patients compared to the people in other countries because they're so thankful to get the treatment from somebody that I can't even put into words. I ultimately ended up going to a course, not in Romania, but another European country, and it was amazing. So, I mean, what was it like going to school in Romania? Because you got to see American dental schools. Um, how would you classify the differences?
Well, like you said, a lot of it is back then, it's not like that anymore. But again, I graduated 25, 26 years ago. Back then, we didn't have as much the same technological advances that you guys had here, right? So obviously, we didn't have a simulation lab, and we didn't have, so sure, we did some wax teeth and whatnot, but we started on family and friends because those were the ones that would trust us to practice on. I mean, I still have fillings on my teeth that my sister, remember, she's a year older, that she did the very first. I was one of her first patients to ever do a filling. I still have them, by the way. um you know
How far into her training did she start actually drilling on live patients?
okay, so our high schools have majors, right?
Right,
So basically, pretty much when we graduate high school, especially the high schools that have the majors, science and stuff, that where you from there you actually have to go to a college to have a profession. Most the other high schools, you end up being a nurse, or you end up being a
right.
carpenter, whatever. You actually have a job when you finish. um, the science ones, you basically finish with an associate's. So dental school is right after high school, and it's 6 years.
Oh, interesting.
hmm and well, my sister was the first promotion of 6 years. It used to be just five before then. So in the 90s, but it's 6 years. So in the third year is when we would start on actual patients.
Got it. So when someone in the US graduates high school, at the same time, say you graduated high school, when we're finishing our second year of college, you're going into clinic.
Correct. There is
Wow.
a couple of product. There is two or three programs here in the states that are 6 years to
Right.
finish. Dental school. You have to, obviously, you have to get in and have a lot of. But look, the biology, the physics, the chemistry that we do.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them you guys don't even learn here in college. I mean,
Agreed.
so when Dr. Gianelli asked that question, right? What was the hardest thing for you guys to learn, for how can I teach you better? Most of my classmates said mechanics. And I was like, yeah, okay, I went to the Olympics of things, but still, we learned that in ninth grade. Ninth grade. And that was a second time we were doing it, because you also did it in the fifth grade. Right. And
Yeah.
this is everybody. Like this is, a lot of the stuff here, like my kids did physics and chemistry and biology because my husband pushed them, but they're musician, and they're going for music and design, right? So they didn't really have to have that in high school if they didn't want to.
Right.
But but we do, like you have to have a bare minimum of stuff like that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So
most Americans are not aware of the European educational system. I mean, I have first cousins. My dad's sister married a Dutchman back in the 60s. So a number of my first cousins are Dutch. And so from the time I was a kid, we'd get together, we'd hang out, we'd chat. And over there, he took something called gymnasium, which is
yes.
right. It's five languages that you're learning in high school. And you're not just learning them like the big joke is being Jewish. 99% of Jews don't speak Hebrew. Like that's the joke, right? We went to school for Hebrew school, whatever, for 20 years. Most of us don't speak Hebrew at all.
Mhm.
Yet my cousins coming out of gymnasium are speaking, French and all sorts of languages fluently. And with quote unquote American exceptionalism, Americans seem to think like we are the greatest at everything. And you need to be exposed to certain things to realize that if our kids could learn 4 or 5 languages in high school and be fluent at them, and the level of math and science that other schools are getting that our kids are not getting, it really is astounding. And that's why I asked you about Romanian dental school. And it's interesting to find out that it starts right after high school. So thank you for answering that. I
My
appreciate it.
husband told me that if he had to work in high school, as hard as I worked to get into dental school, he would never be a dentist. He just had fun in high school here.
Yeah, exactly. You have fun. Most people in high school have fun. You work hard, but I mean, high
I
school
love my
grades are
high
not.
school because I'm a nerd. I love studying, and I had fun with my friends. But I woke up at 5 a.m. since I was 14 if I wanted to be a doctor.
Yeah, most Americans don't need to do that in high school, right? It's college. The other thing I want to talk to you about is apiculture, bees. I want to talk about bees because bees are our friend. And I'll tell you, I've said it before on the show. Whenever I need a break, I try to do the Pomodoro technique where for 25 minutes you do work and then you take 5 minutes off and then 25 minutes of work. So when I get those 5 minutes, often because it's hot in Texas, it's air conditioned indoors. I want to get out of the air conditioning and walk outside. So I walk out to my front yard, and in our front yard, there's literally a place where bees love to congregate. They love it. And most people don't realize that if you're around bees, they don't want to sting you. They want to work. They work themselves to death. And so I'll go out front and I'll just stand there and watch the bees collect pollen from the tree, like up close for like 5 minutes, just because it's so soothing and relaxing. And yet, the stories I've heard is that there's a real problem with bees around the world, or hopefully it's getting better. But it's so nice to have somebody who helps with bees. So tell me, first of all, what do you do with bees? What is your extent?
I have 11 colonies right now,
Wow.
on 3 locations. So, being a beekeeper is just making sure that you keep them alive, you keep them, like in Virginia, for example, in the dead of summer, it's so hot that we don't have enough flowers or, trees for them to be able to collect enough. So you have to sometimes feed them. Or this is why you're saying that, it's getting harder because um there's a lot of pathogens that now, one of the major one is the varroa mites. They basically eat all of the fat reservoirs, and so then the bees don't make it through the winter. So you just have to test and see if they're infested, and pretty much they all are, but you want to make sure that it's minimal, and treat them. There's natural ways, there's chemical, there's all sorts of and then you need to make sure that you give them space, right? So there's one queen that makes babies,
Per
right?
colony,
Per colony.
right?
Yeah,
So you have 11 queens.
correct.
Kind. Nice.
And so a queen, there's one queen that basically makes babies, but then there's all the other thousands and tens of thousands of bees that bring pollen and make honey. Well, you need to make sure that there is room for her to lay, right? Because they can put, you as a beekeeper say, yeah, I want the bottom ones to be the brood chambers and I want the top to be the honey. But if they fill up the honey supers and you don't give them empty comb, then they'll start putting honey in the brood chamber. So
We don't want honey in the brood chamber.
I mean, no, there is some.
I always wanted to say those words. It just see, don't put honey in the brood chamber. It's something I've never had a chance to say in my life. So I felt obligated
I
to
have no
say
idea.
that.
4 years ago, I didn't know anything about them. Do you understand? It's so fascinating, and there's so many life lessons that we can take from bees. I mean, the comb is such a perfect, you know,
Society,
combination.
right?
Yes, well, it's just how they build the comb and how yeah, how they function as a society, as a colony, as it's amazing. So you want to, you want to keep your bees. You don't want them to swarm because if they fill up.
I do not want swarming bees. That I don't know what happens when they swarm, but it doesn't sound good.
Actually, they really don't attack you when they swarm. Okay, this is
By the
how
way, the
they
way you
multiply.
just said that, I want to just interrupt you. They really don't attack you. Either they attack you or they don't attack you.
They
But when you
don't.
say
They don't.
they
No,
really don't,
they
I
don't.
don't know what that means. They kind of attack you,
I know.
but not really attack you.
They're afraid of a lot of bees, and I have been in the middle of them, right? Because it happened that they swarm from my hives to my pear tree, right? And so it's amazing. You're just in the middle of a lot of bees flying, but they don't attack you. They don't attack you. They have nothing
Right.
with you. So this is very natural for them as an entity, a colony, a hive. This is how they multiply. They multiply by, they're starting to make new queens, and then the older queen that was the original queen will take some of the hive and move to a different location, and they prepare for that just so there is another colony. This is very normal. This is how they multiply.
So, but what I know, I'm going to ask you some really basic questions
Okay.
because I feel like I skipped kindergarten when I talk about bees. Because like we all learned how to draw a bee when we were in nursery school, and but this is interesting to me. So, question: what do bees eat? And don't say honey. Please don't say honey. Do bees eat honey? They don't eat honey. They only make honey. What do bees eat?
Yeah. So they do eat honey as well. They don't make it for us. They do make it for themselves. But there is this. It's called bee bread. So they take nectar and pollen, right? And they put it in the comb. And I know it can sound disgusting, but they actually,
I know they vomit it up,
right.
but I always assumed that honey was for the
And it's called
larva.
bee bread. And so this is what they feed to the brood, to the larva, right? So that's why you said no honey in the brood chamber. Well, there's the brood, and then there is the bee bread, and then there is honey. So
So when we take the honeycomb out of the nest, or whatever we call it, how do the bees survive?
well, you don't take it all. I mean, that
Okay,
would
I
be
don't know.
just
I've never collected honey from a hive.
right, right. You do not take it all. You don't take it all. So I have freezers full of honey, still on the frame with that I will put on top of the hive for the winter, right?
Got
So
it.
they have for the winter enough because they cannot collect in the winter. You also put, you can feed them, sugar on top to make sure that they have enough. But yeah, honey, that they make it
I
for
didn't,
themselves for
I
the
didn't know
summer.
that. I always thought it was just for the larvae. So thank you. My other question is, how much time a week does this take for you to deal with? And my assumption is you do this because you love doing it, not because it's some side hustle. The extra $4 you make in honey.
I'm
You know,
an orthodontist, so I can be a beekeeper. Okay,
right.
it's expensive, in
Is
the
it
summer.
really, it's expensive to keep bees?
I mean, it depends on how you want to do it. I have, really nice Apime hives that are protected. They have insulation, and I do. I mean, you buy the extract. I mean, you don't have to start with a lot, but now I'm 4 years in. Just like in orthodontics, if you have toys, you get it easier. You make your job a little easier, right?
Yeah.
Who wants to go back to soldering, bands? If that was orthodontics, I
But
would
how
have
much
never
time
gone
does
to
it take you? How much time are you spending a week, a month, a year?
So the summer and spring months, the weekend, now that I have 11 colonies, you don't have to, like maybe 4 6 hours a weekend. Not every weekend. Okay, I travel a lot, so not every weekend. That's why if I were to be at home every single weekend, it would be just a couple of hours. And then for the winter, obviously they're just, they don't come out. There isn't much to do.
What do you do with the honey?
I just keep it for friends and family. I just give it away, and yeah.
That's awesome. I have a friend who I've been trying to get onto this show forever, who has been beekeeping for, I don't know, decades. And
Oh,
every year
yeah.
I would get honey from him. And it was interesting because when the honey was being harvested, when the honey he was harvesting was being made by bees that were going to, say, blackberries, it tasted very different than the honey that was being made from wildflowers. And it really is interesting how what they pollinate really makes a difference in the flavor of the honey, right?
Okay, now appreciate that friend of yours, because that is a lot of work, to watch and extract the honey for the season, and where only one this is in a flowering, and to extract it separately and not mix it. And I'm hoping that as I grow as a beekeeper, I'll be able to do that. But honestly, this year I have the spring honey and the summer honey. But I don't, I pulled it from all locations. I didn't keep it separate. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of
But
work.
does the spring and summer honey taste different?
Yeah, yeah, because it's from different flowers. It's from
It's
different trees, and
amazing.
there's a fall flower, honey. But I don't take that from them, because I just leave it for them for the winter.
Yeah, let them have their food. You're basically, you've got bougie bees. Your bees live in insulated hives. Super. They're lucky to be the bees of an orthodontist because they live a really good life, right? They get the extra honey in the winter. They get the insulated penthouse, townhome that they're in, and so you're taking good care of them
Yeah,
as you
my,
do your.
my beekeeping club is jealous of my hives, so I'm have a presentation on the Upper May hives in a couple of weeks for my beekeeping
That's
club.
awesome. Well, I want to say thank you to Elena for being here today. I know you said I don't have anything to talk about. I'm like, look, we've gone 30 minutes talking about practices, bees, Romanias. I've learned so much from you, and I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today. Because the essence of the Orthopreneurs podcast isn't about bringing somebody on who started a $40 million practice or who started some new cool technology. That's part of it. But it really is here. My purpose is to help serve our community by talking to people who are part of our community. So people out there can listen and go, you know what? You don't have to have a $40 million practice. Your life doesn't have to be all about orthodontics all the time. My favorite stories are the ones that you've told about your background and where you came from and the things you do for fun, because you illustrate the fact that we're human beings. And that's the most important thing to me.
Well, I don't want to thank you because actually, I think my beekeeping path started, right after COVID. I think the online the year of COVID was my first entrepreneur meeting, and I really appreciated how you actually bringing up from the fact that there's a mental health issue, and
Yeah,
introducing us to Amy Blankston and her brother Sean, and I'm trying to do that in my practice to help the kids, that the teenagers that are struggling so much. And so for me, beekeeping is just part of my serving the world without, any purpose of my own, but also something that it doesn't have to do. I love my family. I love my kids. I love but something where I don't have to do it for my family, right? Or for my practice, or, just for me. I love my bees. I love going to watch them. I go to say hello to them at night. And so yeah, it's
it's beautiful. I just had somebody on not long ago who keeps cattle. He likes going out into the pasture and looking at the cows, though one of them gives him the side eye every time he comes. There's just one cow that looks at him. I said, tell him he's going to become a hamburger. Um, but yeah, these are hobbies. And that's the thing is, so many orthodontists want to be known as being amazing orthodontists. And that's great and that's fine. But there's so much more to me than being an orthodontist, that keeping bees, or for me doing jujitsu, or some people fishing, whatever it might be. We need to have that thing that gives us our mental health. It's so important. And
and
so, thank you so much for being here today, Elena. The
thank you.
stories are great. I learned so much. And I just want to say thank you again from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, thank you for everything I've learned from you.
Appreciate it.